Hello, and welcome to The Critique. Today, we're looking at a transcript from Chicks on the Right that breaks down Candace Owens' recent commentary on everything from ice storms to her conflict with Erika Kirk. Let's get right into the analysis.
Okay, so diving in, there's a huge amount of passion. You can feel it. The creators are, they're clearly deeply invested, especially the moral side of the conflict.
Absolutely, but passion is one thing.
Right. And, well, how that passion gets translated into a structured argument. I think that's where we see some significant room for improvement to make the impact much, much sharper.
I think that's a perfect way to frame it. There seems to be this tension between the entertainment value and the moral weight of the piece. And that brings us to our first point. The material weakens its most compelling moral argument by burying it behind lower stakes content about weather patterns.
Yes, this jumped out at me immediately. You read through the first half, and it's all about, mocking Owens' tweets about freezing temperatures.
The 30 degrees thing.
The 30 degrees thing, exactly, and her weather modification theories. And it's funny, it is, but it feels like low-hanging fruit compared to what comes later.
It really is. Let's look at that ice tweet section. They spend a lot of time reading her posts about how ice at 30 degrees is, unnatural, or that the snow doesn't crunch right. Fine, but it's low stakes.
It's very low stakes. And then you contrast that with the material on Erika Kirk.
Which is the real bombshell.
It's the whole point, really. The accusation that Owens is attacking a grieving widow, that she's mischaracterizing private audio, threatening to uncover the real Erika just months after her husband was killed. That is a heavy, substantial critique of character, of cruelty.
So the risk, then, is that by opening with the ice stuff,
you risk the listener just classifying this as another reaction video. They might laugh at the dumb tweets, but they might also just tune out before you get to the really serious part about the assassination and the memorial.
So what you're really suggesting is a complete inversion of the structure.
Exactly. Lead with the most consequential narrative.
Open with the Erika Kirk segment.
Yes. What if you started right there, with Owens attacking Erika for being excited about the memorial's success? That contrast between Owens' threat and the actual clip of Erika saying she feels peace, knowing God's using this, that is a powerful hook.
It establishes the stakes immediately.
Right. This isn't just about someone not understanding thermodynamics. This is about someone being, allegedly, just vile to a widow. You grab the audience with that moral outrage.
And then you can use the weather conspiracies later.
You use them as supporting evidence. You say, this person is cruel, and by the way, here's some proof their grip on reality might be slipping. But if you lead with the dumb content, you just dilute the dangerous content.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. So moving on from structure to tone, there's a clear attempt here to claim the moral high ground. But the way they go about it, it's a problem. The excessive use of derogatory slurs and personal insults undermines their credibility.
Yeah, this is a tricky, because you can tell they're angry, and anger drives engagement. We know that. But when you look at the transcript, the name-calling it's constant.
I saw terms like tard, the C word.
Ignorant cow, demonic beast, crazy bitch. It's a lot.
It's very visceral. And the problem isn't just that it's offensive, which, it is. It's that it actually weakens their own argument, right?
That's the key. It gives Owens and her supporters an out. They can just dismiss the entire thing as haters being abusive. When a host just says she can F off, it really does feel more like a reaction video than a serious critique.
You alienate people who might otherwise agree with your point.
Completely. So the suggestion is to shift that focus. Move away from the personal insults and toward a deconstruction of her flawed logic. That's how you maintain the moral high ground.
Be the adult in the room.
Yes. Let's take a concrete example. The part about the word delegitimize.
Right, where she adds an extra syllable.
She says delegitimize, and they call her a moron for it. But a much more devastating critique would be to frame it as pseudo-intellectualism.
Ah, I see.
It's more biting to say she's trying to sound smart by inventing longer words and failing. That attacks her pretension, not just her intelligence. It's sharp.
That is sharper. I also noticed that bit about the organic trends tweet. One of the hosts calls her a teenage Zionist burn book writer.
And that line was actually brilliant.
It was effective satire, yeah.
It's descriptive, it's witty, it paints a perfect picture of the behavior, but then it's immediately followed up with, maybe you are dumb and stupid.
And that just blunts the whole thing.
It completely dilutes the wit. It's like taking a scalpel and then just hitting it with a hammer. If they just cut dumb and stupid, that burn book comparison would stand on its own as a really incisive piece of commentary.
So it's about discipline. You have the high ground on the widow issue, don't seed it by using slurs. You want the audience focused on her behavior, not yours.
Exactly. The moment you go there, the conversation shifts to your language and away from her action.
Okay, now let's talk about the flow of the whole piece, because there's a huge interruption right in the middle. The placement and length of the commercial integration just completely disrupts the momentum.
Oh, this was so jarring to read. I actually had to go back and check if I'd missed a page. You go from this high-energy rant about the Zionist burn book,
A real peak moment.
and you slam directly into this very long, very casual ad for Mesa Chips and Vandy Crisps.
It's a significant chunk of text. They're talking about beef tallow and sea salt and churro flavors. It goes on for paragraphs.
And the transition back is just as abrupt. They finish the ad read and boom, they're talking about the tiny horse video from the Daily Wire. The thread is just completely severed.
Their audience has forgotten the burn book comment by then.
They're thinking about chips. So the suggestion is to, create a distinct segment for the ad, or at least build a thematic bridge instead of a hard pivot.
What if they placed it before that whole deep dive into the Daily Wire?
That would be much better. Finish the organic trans segment, take a breath, do the ad, and then reset. Treat it like a proper chapter.
And the tonal clash is pretty severe, too. The ad is all happy and casual. I'm a salt girl. Yum. And then immediately after, they're talking about vile behavior and assassination.
It's emotional whiplash. You can't ask an audience to switch from thinking about churro-flavored snacks to processing deep grief in a split second. It trivializes the serious content that follows.
Okay, so let's move on to an interesting part of the argument. The section where the hosts actually find common ground with Owens. But the segment where they agree with her lacks the analytical depth to really differentiate their worldview from hers.
Right. The power line section, Owens is complaining about unburied cables, and one of the hosts says, I agree on some level, and then talks about how great it was when they buried the lines in their neighborhood.
It feels like a moment of connection, but does it really serve the overall critique?
I think it's a huge missed opportunity, because Owens isn't just complaining about aesthetics, is she? The transcript says she links it to NASA spraying chemicals and what soldiers said in the Korean War.
Ah, okay, so she's radicalizing a totally normal infrastructure issue.
Exactly. So the suggestion is to use that moment of agreement to sharpen the distinction in their reasoning.
Contrast the why.
Precisely. Instead of just saying, I agree, buried is better, they should point out why they each hold that position. They want buried lines for reliability during a storm. Owens wants them to thwart a government chemical conspiracy.
That's a much more powerful point. It shows that even when she stumbles onto a valid problem, her diagnosis is part of the larger issue.
Yes, by just saying I agree, they accidentally validate her premise. But if they say, we both want buried lines, but I want them for storms, and she wants them because of Korean war conspiracies, it highlights the absurdity of her worldview perfectly.
It shows how that worldview infects even the most mundane topic. Okay, finally, let's get to the core of it, the town hall audio clip. The commentary on that clip relies too heavily on the listener just interpreting tone, rather than providing concrete evidence of the mischaracterization.
This is the climax of the whole piece. They play the audio of Erika Kirk. Owens claims she sounds happy, while the hosts argue she was excited about the gospel.
And they get very angry here. They say things like, it makes my skin crawl. But, anger isn't evidence. Relying on the audience to just hear it in her voice is a bit risky.
It is. And the suggestion here is to get much more granular, to explicitly break down the semantics, the difference between happy and excited, to prove that Owens is lying, not just to react with emotion.
Well, the text of the transcript provides the proof, doesn't it? Erika literally says, it's weird to say I'm excited. I really hesitate saying that.
That's the smoking gun. She acknowledges the conflict herself. I really hesitate saying that. The host should hammer that point. Owens completely ignores that hesitation.
She paints it as pure joy.
As if she's celebrated. But the text shows a woman who is clearly struggling with these complex, conflicting emotions in the middle of her grief.
So instead of just saying she mischaracterizes it, they should put those two things side by side. Owens' claim of happy versus Erika's actual quote about witnessing the gospel and her hesitation.
Exactly. They get a little lost in their own emotional reaction, which is understandable, but a cooler, more fact-based comparison would be so much more damning. Show the audience. Owens said X.
The tape literally says why. The lie reveals itself.
It transforms the segment from just a rant into a real takedown. It moves it from subjective opinion to objective fact.
You don't need to call her a demonic beast. The evidence does the work for you.
This has been a really thorough review. I mean, the source material is obviously charged with emotion and a strong moral stance. That's a great foundation.
It really is. You can't teach passion, and they have it. The bones of a fantastic critique are right there. It just needs some structural work and a shift from ad hominem to real deconstruction.
So, to recap for our listener, you've got powerful material, but you need to restructure the episode. Start with the Erika Kirk conflict. That's your strongest hook. Don't bury it behind the weather tweets.
And we strongly advise pulling back on the personal slur. It really does undermine your authority and gives your subject an easy way to dismiss your argument.
Right. And that ad read, it kills your momentum. It needs to be shorter or, at the very least, moved to a natural break point in the narrative.
Finally, use those moments of agreement to highlight the divergence in logic. And with the audio, let the text prove the lie for you. Focus on the semantic difference between happy and excited.
It's all about letting the evidence speak louder than the insults.
When you do that, the critique becomes, well, it becomes unassailable.
We would love to see how you implement this feedback. It's a powerful story, and it deserves the sharpest possible telling. Please submit your next script for review. We're eager to help you refine your voice. Thank you for listening.